Let us continue then the reading of The Crowds of Lourdes by Jarry Karl Huysmans. Yesterday, as you might recall, we had a rather atrocious spectacle, so I'm going to continue with what he comments on with regards to this. As you might remember, he spoke about it was kind of a prayer to our Lord with the sadness of seeing such an atrocity. And then at the end of this chapter, as we finish, you will hear him explain how, or rather why, the number of cures at Lourdes is diminishing. Dear Lord, think of the likeness of the holy face. It was sorrowful and blood-stained, but it was not repulsive. Save the very dignity of thy likeness by a miracle, and cleanse and purify this face of its defilement. He is appalling, says the chaplain, and then he tells how perplexed he was this morning when he had to give the poor fellow Holy Communion, for he did not know in which opening of the cavern to put the host. It is believed to be a special sort of cancer, he says. But come. And then he takes me to the ambulance yard and stops in front of a quite small child. From the bottom of the leather hood emerges the charming face of a little girl, a blonde of delicate features, and with so fine a skin that the blue network of her veins shows beneath it. A young lady sitting on a folding stool is at her side, and laughing with her. This child is not suffering, at any rate. What is the matter with her? Look, sir. And the young lady shows us something that was never a body at all. For the child had come into the world rickety and twisted together. Her legs are two thin vine stalks, twisting round one another like the branches of a thyrsus. Her arms are like matches with fingers of gelatin, so that they can be turned about in all directions like a kid glove. As for the rest of her body, it's but a tiny parcel of pale and boneless flesh. How can she live, built as she is in this fashion? It is nevertheless true that if she can neither walk nor move, she vegetates sadly in a hospital from which this excellent young lady has fetched her away to bring her to Lourdes, and is now aware of the affection she has devoted to this poor orphan, for her part never takes her eyes off her, becoming as restless as a little lost bird as soon as her friend goes away from her. It must be admitted that this hospital is both a hell for the body and a paradise for the soul. Nowhere have I seen alongside the most frightful evils so much charity and goodwill. From the point of view of human pity, Lourdes is a miracle. There, more than anywhere else, you find the gospel being put into practice, and a kind of devout woman, very unlike those who grow sour in our churches for the purpose of arranging their sorry affairs with the statues of saints and the money boxes attached to them. A gang of Belgians is passing by, and my friend says, "The Belgians are the only ones here who are splendidly organized. Under the terrace of the Rosary they have set up an inquiry office, and first aid is in perpetual readiness. The reports of their sick, provided with doctor's certificates and very carefully checked, are models of their kind. As administrators, they are perfect, but as men, well, that is another matter. At Lourdes they are a band apart. As for us, when we are summoned to lend a hand, we go without troubling whether the pilgrim in need of a bearer or a bath is a Frenchman or not. But it is not so with them. They will help none but Belgians. Their pity is patriotic, and their charity national. It looks, however, as if the egoism and the love of ease which they have brought them to Lourdes during their recent years have not turned to the benefit of their sick. For although during their first pilgrimages they obtained numerous and notable cures, Now they get far fewer. Formerly they traveled here third class and never left the bedridden. Today they have a specially built medical train with first-class compartments and sleeping cars, and a chapel for the celebration of Mass on the journey. All is the very height of comfort, and thence, once landed there, and having lodged their helpless cases, half of the sick attendants of both sexes scamper off on excursions into the mountains. In a word, they have turned their pilgrimage into a pleasure party. And most surely these new ways are not winning approval from up there. But, I answer, we must take intentions into account. As practical folks, the Belgians wanted to avoid the painful horror of trainloads of dying people being dragged from one end of France to the other in penitential railway carriages. The sinister white trains, so well described by Zola. And they desired to have their sick bearer provided for, that they might suffer less. Such comfort, then, from that point of view, is an act of charity. Perhaps. But nevertheless, there are the facts. Ask the people of Lourdes. There is not one who is not struck with the diminution of favors inflicted on the Belgians since they have given up traveling in poverty and abandoned their posts at the pillows of the bedridden to run off in bands in search of diversion. And there you have it. How many go to Lourdes as if it were a trip to Disneyland, instead of seeking the spiritual benefits that along with it will come, the physical ones of cures. That's it for today.